Hi, everybody, and welcome to the inaugural edition of the PigPaws Podcast, where I ask the really dumb questions that most people are afraid to. I admit I'm probably a hypocrite. Not a lot makes sense to me, hence the name PigPaws. My name is Lee, and I will be your host throughout. Now, this initial podcast, I'll tell you what it is I'm doing here, the intent of the podcast, and you'll learn a little more about your host, me, and what exactly makes me super qualified to host a podcast focusing on race, religion, and politics. But first, we'll go on with the goal of the podcast. What it is I'm here to do is basically to ask the questions that we have systemically been programmed to either not ask or to be afraid to ask. And yet that doesn't leave much room for discussion. If it is assumed that we already know the answer to the question, but we haven't gotten anywhere yet. The goal of the podcast is to have at least one guest a week, and I'm sure I'll add some monologues in there too when something pops in the media, like the riots in Baltimore or what was going on in Ferguson, what have you. I tend to go off on rants. I'll get caffeinated. I'll drink a Monster, get caffeinated, all hyped up, and go off on a rant. And sometimes I'm wrong. So if I'm wrong, tell me, show me, give me another point of view. Don't just stomp your feet like a 3-year-old and scream that I'm a racist or a misogynist or a pig or what have you. Just give me another point of view. I'm trying to have a discussion here. I'm trying to learn. Trying to challenge myself, and in the process, maybe challenge you, some of the listeners out there, to have a different point of view on things. In any case, the podcast, myself and my guest, we'll be free to pretty much say whatever the hell we want to. So that being said, you might want to keep the kids away. Race, religion, and politics being more of an adult topic, even if some of the people on here are being a little childish, or the guest, or the host, or whoever. We will be playing on and talking about stereotypes, how white guys are nasally and nerdy, while the black guys have rhythm and big dicks. And the Asians can't drive. But that's not really a stereotype, is it? I mean, we can all agree on that, right? Anyway, the guests I have on here are friends and coworkers. These are the same conversations we have at work from time to time. So if you're in HR, please don't listen. Please stop listening right now. Like I said before, I'm wrong about some things. At least that's what I'm told about the media and the activists, both on the mainstream media and on the alternative media that seem to be taking over the airways and the intertube. I don't have a problem with being wrong. In fact, if I'm wrong, I want to learn why. Okay, I want to see things from multiple points of view. The issue is that people are afraid to ask questions, and they think they're dumb questions, or they're if they ask them in their circle of friends, the same people that they have the same experiences with. They've shared the same type of life, the same type of background generally, and so they'll ask white guys about what's going on in the black community, or they'll ask black folks what's going on in the white community, or how can we get the Asians to do X, Y, and Z, or things of that nature. And it doesn't make any sense to ask the same people the same questions that have the same background as you. And since they're afraid to ask those questions, I'm going to ask those questions. I'm going to ask those questions of a lot of different people, different genetic backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds. Yes, I'll probably be criticized for it. You know, that's fine. I've been labeled before, and I'm sure I'll continue to be labeled. So a little bit about me. I'm pretty much the epitome of average. That's what makes me so qualified to have this podcast on race, religion, and politics. In my 30s. I'm a married white guy with 2 kids, 2 dogs, multiple firearms. I'm a fatty, so my boobs jiggle whenever I go over speed bumps. I'm always trying to lose weight. I plant a garden every year. I get my money's worth out of Amazon Prime. I listen to everything from Pantera to NWA, Garth Brooks to the Glitch Mob, Deadmau5 to Alabama, and the Oak Ridge Boys. In fact, the only thing that might give me a 9 out of a 10 on the average scale is the fact that I'm not much of a gamer, and I don't watch too much TV. But to counter that, I am, in my professional life, I'm in IT services. So I'm sure we'll be talking about some of that stuff as well. Outside of work and outside of family, I'm a volunteer EMT. I've been an EMT for, 10, 12, 15 years now. I've been in EMS for almost 20. I try to do about a week. I try to do a shift a week or so. And I'm actually going to try and get some of the guys from the firehouse on here to get their points of view on multiple different things. so on and so forth. Let's see. I grew up in PG County, which, if you don't know, is located in the People's Socialist Republic of Maryland. It is the richest majority black county in the country. So basically, I'm a fat redhead. Growing up in PG County, I think it's fair to assume that I got my ass kicked once or twice. Sometimes I deserved it. Sometimes I don't think I did. I know for a fact I was jumped because I was white. And I know that because that's what the students told the administrators when they got busted. My extended family is from southern West Virginia, just outside coal country. One grandfather was a steel worker. The other was a dirt farmer. And both my grandmothers were stay-at-home moms or worked from home, however you want to take a look at it. I'm not about to get into that argument right now. Let's see here. Those two issues, growing up in PG County, and I don't want it to sound like I grew up in the slums, in the ghetto. I did not grow up in gangland. Just because it's a majority black county does not mean that everything is slummy. That's another stereotype that a lot of people have. I did not grow up in the ghetto. I got bused to a school where it was primarily a black school, which, again, fine. But I grew up in that county, and then I would, about once a month, we'd go down to see family. If you want to see a racial divide in this country, I encourage you to go to Baltimore. I love Baltimore. Go to Baltimore's west side, spend a day down there, walk around, and then drive down to southern West Virginia and spend the day there. It's about an 8-hour drive. The only thing these two groups of people seem to have in common is the economics. Now, I grew up driving to the Orioles games in Baltimore, in Memorial Stadium. I love that town. Eddie Murray's my favorite all-time baseball player, at least hometown anyway. But I grew up watching Eddie Murray and Jim Palmer, Cal Ripken, Rick Dempsey, Fred Lynn. Love those guys. I saw a no-hitter there in Memorial Stadium against the Chicago White Sox. Parking 3 deep. That was one of the memories. It was great. It was, I was a kid. It didn't bother me. It was normal. But Baltimore back in the day, as far as I was concerned, Baltimore was the shit back then. But I also, and like I said, I was a kid. I wasn't aware of anything but really baseball, and that was pretty much it. We traveled down to see the extended family in southern West Virginia, and it was the same, but at the same time, it was the complete opposite color-wise. I don't remember any overt racism. My family is, I should say, Bible-thumping Christians down there, which is kind of strange because there's really no one to preach to down there, so I can't really call them Bible thumpers. But they're pretty devout Christians. They make it a point to treat everybody as well as possible down there. And so I didn't see too much racism. And if I did, I was so young, I didn't understand it. And I haven't seen anything as an adult. I haven't seen anything from my family or from their neighbors or anything like that. Let's see. My dad, to this day, he's a fundamentalist. I grew up in a fundamentalist Christian household, and I can tell you right now that my opinion of organized religion is that it is a cancer of the soul. And again, that's assuming you can tell the difference or you understand the difference between a religion and having faith. I do consider myself a Christian, but I don't adhere to any organized religion. I think organized religion is a sack of shit. The problem with religion, especially the fundamentalist religions, and emphasis there on mental, is that, these are folks like the born-agains, the young earthers, the fundamentalist, and I'm going to lump them in with the fundamental, my face isn't working right, fundamentalist Muslims, is that they require you to judge people. And if you don't do what they do, then you're obviously going to hell or whatever punishment that they believe that God has in store for you. And maybe we'll get some cats on here. I know of a few, some of these guys are friends of mine, coworkers of mine. So maybe we can get some of these on here and they can convince me. Otherwise, they can bring up some points I hadn't thought of. But for right now, organized religion can eat a big fat dick. But growing up in PG County, as well as being an EMT, for the last few years, it's led me to have a pretty big distrust of the police. The problem being that most are absolutely great people outside of the uniform. There's a couple that I've been to baseball games with, and a couple at the different fire departments I've been members of. They're great people. The problem is, as soon as they put on that uniform, they turn into giant dickwads, complete assholes. My current point of view is that there's not really much of any good cops out there, and I say this, but at the same time, I've also defended them at the same time. The point that I say that there's no good cops out there is because, one, yes, it's an incredibly hard job. It's almost an impossible job for anybody to do well. Okay, I mean, we expect these guys to be law enforcement and to be psychologists, and it's an incredibly difficult job. They look at us, though, as it's us versus, they have this us versus them mentality, and that's what they get, That's what they do to us, and so that's what we collectively do to them. So here's a for instance in that my belief that there's not too many, if any, good cops out there. If my neighbor Johnny robs a bank and tells me about it, and I don't say a word to the cops, I'm just as guilty, right? I'm just as guilty as he is in robbing that bank. Now, if Officer Johnson does something wrong and his partner knows but doesn't stop him or turn him in, isn't his partner just as guilty? So I'm just using the same logic that they apply to us, right? So it should apply to them, because justice is a motherfucker. Let me tell you. Again, if I'm wrong, explain it to me. All right, don't just tell me I'm wrong. Don't just jump up and down and throw a tantrum. Tell me why I'm wrong. I have no problem defending cops. I just don't see too many out there worth defending. Yes, they're doing their job. Yes, they're normal people. But they take liberties, and they know it, and they assume that they have the right to do it, and they don't, okay? As an EMS provider, I've seen cops do a lot of great things, okay? And I've also seen them do some shitty things, okay? I've seen cops do things that I thought was wrong, and I've had to have my lieutenants talk me off the edge as far as going off either on them on the scene or going to their supervisor, I have had to report a cop. Well, I take that back. I've reported an officer to my EMS lieutenant. So I don't know if that counts or not. If that doesn't, well, I guess, hey, I'm just as guilty. One thing that people say is that we don't applaud the cops for doing the right things. And to some degree, that's true. They've got to react within a split second. And, we have all the time in the world to dissect frame by frame whatever they've done. But the problem is, it's their job. They're trained to do these things, okay? They're trained to react, just like EMS is, just like doctors are. They're trained. And they're not trained to destroy our rights, okay? Yes, they can ask questions. They can ask if they can search your car. The problem comes is when they start manufacturing evidence or they start lying, and they're not getting nailed for it. Even when they're caught, they're not getting nailed for it, okay? So why should I say that, hey, good job, great job? When I do my job, what do I get? I get a paycheck, okay? They're doing their job. If they go above and beyond, great. Go for it. Give them an attaboy, give them a bonus, what have you. Another issue I have with cops, and I don't think it's really their fault. I think it's more the political aspect of things, is they've basically been reduced to tax collectors. And I think that has to do a lot more with the war on drugs, that failure of a policy that is perpetuated from the federal government. But the cops have been reduced to tax collectors. Their revenue. My face isn't working. They're revenue generators for the given counties or districts or what have you, to the point where the money they bring in is fucking budgeted. Okay, they assume that the cops are going to bring in X amount of dollars, on fines or on asset seizures and things of that nature. And, that's probably where, quote, the ideas of quotas come in. It might not be a hard number, but I guarantee you Officer Johnson's out there expected to have X number of tickets and or X number of arrests, legitimate or not. The seized property, the civil forfeiture bullshit, that's all on the cop, because they don't have to. They don't have to take that money. If Tommy's going to go buy a used car, and he's got, $1,500 in his pocket, the cop takes it. Why? Because he thinks it might have to do something to do with drugs. And it's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. And people it's been 20, 50 or 20 or 30 years now that they've had asset forfeiture laws, and people are just now starting to realize that it's bullshit. See, that brings us into politics, and that brings us to politics, and I fucking hate I hate politics. If you define yourself as an R or a D, then fuck you. If you're a politician and you always vote along party lines, you're a fucking traitor, because you are the partisan politics problem in this country, in this state, in the county, whatever. All right? You would rather win than do what's right. At that point, that's how we know that you haven't talked to your constituents. All right? And I think it's my belief, and nobody to this point has really even disagreed with me, there needs to be term limits on these fuckers. You would rather I say you as the politicians. Politicians would rather be good in the eyes of their buddies making big money in big businesses than actually do your fucking job. And they're supposed to represent the people in the districts. No one, and I mean no one, agrees with everything their selected party does 100% of the time. Yet, how much partisan politics is that? How much horse trading? Bullshit. No, it's not. No. You scratch my back, I scratch yours? No, that's not how it works. All right? The whole fucking lot of them. Pelosi, McConnell, Boehner, the whole lot of them. Traitors. Now, personally, I'll throw this out there. I've been towards libertarianism because grown-ass adults can make their own damn decisions. Okay? I know libertarianism doesn't come close to having all the answers, but Republicans have ruined the free market with their cronyism. They've had help from the Democrats to do that because, it was the Democrats that allowed the big banks to get into the stock market. All right. Democrats have run straight past socialism and now forging straight into fascism. Again, with the help from the Republican, So, and if we're going to get into political parties, George Washington, he warned us in his farewell address. He warned us against them. He didn't like them because of this. It's because it becomes a winning thing and not an issue thing. Okay. Look. The U.S., to some degree, is already socialist. That's where we get our roads from, police, municipal fire and EMS departments, schools, infrastructure. It's all socialistically paid for, all right, from taxes. The fuck of it is, now the states are, since they're over-servicing, is that the word? Since they can't get their budgets under control, they're starting to add tolls to the roads we've already fucking paid for. What the hell is that? In any case, a lot of what we do is already socialistic in nature. 90%, most of us, I'm throwing numbers out of my ass there, most of us don't have a problem with that. I don't. I do have a problem with the federal government forcing us to buy things from the private sector, specifically talking about Obamacare. And I understand what they were trying to do, all right? But I have to throw the bullshit flack on the way they did it, okay? I'm an EMS. I see people all the time. They're more worried about how they're going to pay for this thing, for this issue, than they are about the actual issue. I don't worry, ma'am, whoever. I don't worry about the bill, okay? I concentrate on trying to find your other arm so we can get it reattached to your body, all right? That's what I worry about. I think the government overstepped their bounds on this because they declared to the Supreme Court that it was not a tax. It was not. They asked several times, it was not a tax. And then Dickhead Roberts declared it a tax. How the fuck can he do that? How? Explain to me how. I mean, the way they did it was just asinine. They shoved it down our throats. There was no debate. There was no debate on, hey, let's go ahead and expand Medicare and Medicaid. There was no debate on, well, hey, let's just take out the pre-existing condition issues from all of the healthcare companies. There was none of that. It was just, you will do this or you will pay a tax or you will pay a fine, okay? Or they call it a tax, whatever. So now that the president has been set, the feds can come in and demand that we buy something from anybody, No, you have to buy an iPhone from Apple because it helps prop up the economy. No, you have to buy a car from General Motors. You have to buy gas from Exxon. You have to buy seeds from Monsanto. Oh, and they're going to bring it up. It helps the economy. It helps the economy. Don't you want to help the economy? The government can't afford to let people be independent. It can't. It's a self-sustaining entity at this point, and I think it's pretty much out of control. Now, it doesn't care about you, and the bureaucrat that you complain to doesn't care about you, because if they don't get that money from you, that bureaucrat is out of a job. So what incentive do they have to help you? I guess it all goes to incentive. No, it all goes to integrity, really, and that, I think, is the problem with this country. No one has any integrity anymore. I'm sure some of us do at the macro level, if it comes down to our families. But for the most part, I mean, most of us grew up on television shows that had, a moral within the story, whether it's G.I. Joe or Punky Brewster or Different Strokes, Good Times. They all had morals. They all had, some kind of dilemma during the show, and then, it was fixed by the end, right? There was always a moral to the story. But our leaders today, the people who somehow keep getting into positions of leadership, aside from being primarily left-handed psychopaths, they have no integrity. It's all about them and all about what they can get. Nothing about us. As far as national politics go, I think President Obama has proven there really is no difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. I mean, that's not to say that the religious freaks on the right are the same as the tree-hugging freaks on the left. And I hate using generalities. I hate saying conservatives and liberals. They're all fucking nuts. But if that's how they want to define themselves, then they're all assholes, and that's what they get out of it. I don't care what color you are. I don't care where you stick your dick. I don't care who you sleep with, what you identify as, racially or sexually. I don't care who you marry. As long as everybody involved is consenting adults, then it shouldn't fucking matter. I don't think government should be involved in marriage. I understand there are contracts involved and things of that nature, but marriage was a religious institution. So the government really shouldn't have anything to do with it beyond that. There's got to be other ways around that. And if not, fuck it. Add it to them. All right? If your faith tells you that it has to be one way, great. That's your faith. Then you should do what your faith dictates. Don't put your faith on me. Don't put that backward-ass faction of Islam, fundamentalist, 1,000-year-old Christianity shit on me. Okay? Personally, I don't like abortion. All right? But guess what? I'm a guy. I'm not going to have a fucking kid. All right? I'm not capable of having an abortion. At the same time, being a guy, what gives me the right to tell a woman what to do with her body? I don't like it, but that's still her choice. And my faith is strong enough that it will be worked out in the end. Okay? That it's not on me. I had one guy, he was a true blue Bible thumper. He went off on Obamacare one day. And the strange thing was, at least strange to me at the time, was that I agreed with him for a lot of what he said. And he said he didn't believe the government should dictate that we help pay for medical bills of heroin addicts or I guess people who, abuse themselves. But at the same time, the Bible thumper thought it was okay that the government dictate what a woman could and couldn't do to her body. I don't get that contradiction. That's the kind of contradiction I don't see it. Why is it okay for the government to dictate one thing but not the other? Just because it agrees with your fucked up religious stance? Well, if it's your religious stance, it's your religious stance. You're putting your faith on me if you force me to abide by it. And I just don't get that. It's issues like that, that some of the things we'll be talking on the podcast. Nice, simple topics like abortions and gay people having abortions. That'll really freak out the religious people. Now, how do I reconcile that it's okay to pay for roads and schools, but not for someone else's health care? It's simple. I don't use that person's health care. I don't need clean needles for heroin. I personally don't need a sex change operation. Why should I have to pay for yours? I need roads. My kids need schools. I need fire and EMS and police. I need military to protect the borders. That's pretty funny. Those fucking Canadians. Tell me, why should I pay for someone else's abortion if I don't need it? I mean, sure, go ahead, have one. But these religious fucks scream about liberty and how they're being oppressed and everything, and they have no goddamn problem oppressing other people who don't believe what they do. A bunch of ignorant fucks. Let's see. Now I lost my place. Canadian borders. Ha. Where do I stand on borders? Good question. Oh, no. Let me go back to that. The one thing I can say is that schools. I need schools, and I know for my kids, and I know a lot of people out there don't have kids, so why should they pay for schools? And there's definitely some room to talk about that. Should people with kids pay more tax? That's definitely an option. That's definitely a talking point. It's something we can talk about. But it's things like that it don't make any sense to me. And so, borders. We're back on borders now. How do I feel about the borders? That's a good question. I'm glad you asked. I think the borders need to be sealed, and the adult illegals need to be thrown out. I mean, in general. Now, that's not to say that it's going to be unfair to people. Well, it's unfair to them. Keeping them in the country is unfair to us because we're paying for everything. We're paying for the infrastructure, the schools, everything. All right, and a lot of the far left leaning folks, they're they're people. Well, they're people in their own country as well. Okay, they're still, yes, they are people. All right, now going through all that, there is the issue of what are being called the dreamers, the kids that were brought here illegally by their parents that don't necessarily have a connection to their home country. That is an issue. That's something we're going to have to deal with because you can't just snatch somebody off the street who doesn't know Chinese and drop them in the middle of China. Just because they come from a Chinese heritage, you can't do that. Mexico, Latin America, South America, it's pretty much all the same. You can't snatch somebody off the street and because of something that wasn't their fault and force them back into a strange country that they have no connection to. It just doesn't work. So something has to be done there. I don't see anybody talking about that. It's the government shoving it down our throats on one side, and it's the people trying to throw everybody out on the other side. Nobody's taking a middle stance on this. With that, there's a big problem I've seen in the D.C. area that a lot of cultures, a lot of people, naturally they all kind of cluster together, but a lot of cultures aren't melting into society. This country is a melting pot. You're supposed to melt. If your culture isn't melting, then get the fuck out. I understand as a tax-paying American and as an EMT who's seen and treated what I assumed were a lot of illegals. I didn't ask for their papers. I've seen a lot of illegals that just don't give a fuck. They give zero fucks about this country. But the same could be said about current citizens. But the current citizens are usually the one paying their taxes. I say that usually because unless you're the Secretary of the Treasury, you're paying your taxes. But I've also seen a lot of immigrants, again, illegal or not, they've come into the firehouse. They've come into the volunteer firehouse and volunteer. I've seen folks fresh off the boat who do care and who do want to make a difference, and that's great. I love it. Bring those folks in. That's what we're looking for. They see this as the land of opportunity, and a lot of us fat fucks who've been here for generations have lost sight of that. And on the immigration front, there's basically two sides in the media. There's the current American citizens who have either gone through the process of becoming a citizen, or those who are lucky enough to be born here. And then there's on the other side you have those who who cross the border illegally and then effectively demand citizenship and all the benefits therein simply for making the trip. Well, those entitled fucks can go fly a kite. The issue I feel that sucks are for the kids. I can see, again, I pay my taxes. These immigrants cost me more and more, and they aren't going through the right channels. But I can also understand that as a parent, I want to give my kid the best chance, all right? And no one's going to tell me that I can't support my family. If I have to go to a different country to support my family, that's what I'm going to do. The problem comes is that when you go to a different country illegally, and then you start sucking off the social the social safety net that was originally put there for everybody else, for the actual citizens who paid into it. Now, the question there is, how do we bring the two sides together? I don't know much about the process of what it takes to become a citizen. I know a few people who have gone through the process, and I know it's not impossible. But most of them are Asian. So, again, that goes back to the stereotype. They're all a little more determined than the average person. That's what I'm trying to figure out. So, there you have it in a nutshell, folks. That's pretty much me that's pretty much how I see most of the things going on as far as cops and religion and politics. For the most part, I try to get along with everybody. I try to take the hardline stance out of the equation. One question that was given to me was in regards to judging and opinions. How do I judge? And the point, and I guess the answer to that is I try not to judge. To me, a judgment takes a lot more to change than an opinion. So I try to have a lot of opinions on things and very few judgments. EMS has taught me nothing if it hasn't taught me that bad things happen to good people, and people are in the situation, generally because they They put themselves there, but not always. A car accident isn't always your fault. And so I can't judge people just from, the fact that they do something I don't agree with. Maybe there's a reason they do something I don't agree with. And I try not to take too hard a stance, unless, of course, it's something that, you should have known. If the first 2 times didn't teach you anything, the last time it sure as hell should have. Things of that nature. So that's where I am. I should be having the first 5 episodes up here pretty soon. And if you have any questions, hit me up on Twitter at PigPaws. And if you want to hit me up on email, that's fine too. It's PigPaws@PigPaws.com. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you. You follow me, I'll follow you back. And I'll talk at you later. Take care.